Has Metropolis, the city of tomorrow, slowly morphed into the city of secrets, and will the Daily Planet news team be able to get to the bottom of them all? Well, let's hop into the pages of Superman Annual 2023 issue number 1 and find out together, shall we? So then, as we join the book, we see Superman doing battle with an army of Toyman robots that are currently attacking the city, and why yes, the Toyman robots look exactly like his animated series counterpart. Though, surprise, surprise, Superman fighting Toyman isn't actually what this annual is about. In fact, it's just a clever framing device used to shine a spotlight on the Daily Planet news team and also dig a little deeper into a bunch of the different plot threads that Joshua Williamson has been weaving since this series began. What I particularly dig about it is that Williamson goes out of his way to be sure to honor all the different members of the news team. There's classic members that you'll recall like Steve Lombard on sports, Cat Grant on entertainment, as well as newer characters like Trish Q on gossip, or Miko Agawa the photographer. Hell, they even remembered to dig up Ron Troop again on politics. It feels like it's been 100 years since I've seen him in one of these books. You'll also remember that Lois now has Perry's old job, and as the head of the planet, she feels that a lot of their stories are getting stagnant, and that the only way they're going to try and slow the inevitable death of print media is if they shake things up. As of today, everyone is officially switching beats. After all, if the Daily Planet really does have some of the best investigative journalists in the whole world, then this shouldn't be a problem at all, right? And it's with those marching orders we get treated to several smaller vignettes. First up is a story revolving around Supercorp, wherein Jimmy and Lisa Lombard are actually sent to interview Mercy Graves. Obviously, they got a lot of important questions like, hey, you worked for Luthor before he went to jail, but now you're working with Superman and Superman is okay with that? Shouldn't you know where all the bodies are buried? Also, I heard after the events of Lazarus Planet, you're literally more machine than woman now. Any comment on that? No? It's while snooping around, Jimmy ends up coming face to face with Rudy Jones the Parasite, who, as we discover, is actually working at Supercorp during the weeks and serving his sentences on the weekend. As Mercy says, this is part of a much bigger supervillain work release program that Supercorp is involved in due to Superman's own influence. In fact, as Mercy puts it, this is kind of the ultimate win-win. They get to serve Superman's ideology by trying to further rehabilitate his victims, many of whom were victims of graft and farm, while also honoring Lex Luthor's ideals by getting free labor given to them by criminals. Obviously, Jimmy thinks this is a bad idea, and there's a case of mistaken identity when one of those other rogue parasites end up almost attacking him, causing Mercy to step on in and use her new powers. But luckily for everyone, the parasite pup is harmless, and they even decide to let Rudy keep him because, hey, you know what? Pets are good for teaching prisoners all about responsibility and accountability, right? After that, we get a story involving Lois herself. She's desperately trying to get to the bottom of the missing 5 years wherein apparently Lex Luthor, when he first came to Metropolis, actually acted as a superhero. The only problem is there seems to be absolutely zero news written about it, which is obviously impossible, meaning that there's gotta be something deeper and more sinister at play here. Of course, Lois has to put her own interests on hold to go and do Steve Lombard's job. He was sent to Stryker's Island to interview Livewire, but as Steve puts it, he just kind of gave up when she didn't want to talk about sports, which has got to be maybe the most Steve Lombard thing ever. Lois presses some of the Stryker guards about how many villains have broken out as of recently, but they say they're taking extra precautions now thanks to a bunch of brand new weapons and gear provided to them by, you guessed it, Supercorp. It's while at Stryker's Island, Lois ends up coming under attack by Red Cloud, aka Robinson Goode. You'll remember her as actually a former member of the Daily Planet sent to infiltrate them by the Invisible Mafia in the Bendis years. Cloud still has it out for Lois, but wouldn't you know it, the new head of the Daily Planet ends up finding a very unlikely ally in the form of Livewire herself. Lois says that if Livewire saves her from Red Cloud, then not only will she give her a glowing interview, she'll give her own guest column. And for someone who is so incredibly obsessed with getting their voice out there and being heard and being seen as a celebrity, naturally they jump at the opportunity, even if it means having no honor amongst thieves. Now, back at the paper, Erica, the crime beat reporter, is going through all the physical files in the planet's basement. It seems that there were actually stories on Lex Luthor's time as a hero, but that they were buried deeper than anyone possibly could have imagined, and that they haven't even been digitized for some reason. We also learn in this issue from Ronnie that apparently the mayoral race in Metropolis is really heating up now. The current mayor is obviously corrupt as the day is long, but he keeps getting the job because no one is actually willing to run against him. But we'll circle back to that in a minute. Perhaps the biggest story in this collection actually belongs to Cat Grant. She's been acting weird and distant all day because of this Toyman attack. Again, if you're a longtime Superman fan, you'll remember that Cat Grant used to have a kid, and that kid was actually killed by Toyman, so it makes a lot of sense that she's currently riding around with the new police chief of Metropolis, Chief Krakoa, not to be confused with Krakoa. This guy was introduced actually all the way back in issue 1 of this series, and he's got a name and design that just screams he'll be important later on, yet for some reason we still learn nothing about him here in this story. The cops and Cat end up coming upon a bank robbery, but it's not actually the new police chief who saves the day on this one. Instead, it's Marilyn Moonlight, that mysterious Western-themed crime fighter who battles evil by night in Metropolis when Superman is assumedly not around. Cat naturally wants to get an interview with her, seeing Marilyn as something of a kindred spirit, someone who has also been deeply hurt by this city and is trying to make a difference. Now hey, you didn't think we'd go a whole Superman story without having a little bit of Clark. As we learn from him, this Toyman attack was actually, once again, being masterminded from the shadows by Dr. Graff and Mr. Farm. They kidnapped and beat up the real Winslow Shot just so they could steal his technology and keep Superman busy for a little bit. But why? Well, we'll come back to that too in a minute. Lois has finished her investigation into Luthor's missing 5 years, and because of that she feels comfortable sharing with Superman her theory, and that is the only way that these stories could ever possibly be buried, is if their old boss friend and godfather to their child, Perry White, did it himself. Did I also mention that Perry White is currently deciding to run for mayor? Because I get the feeling that's gonna be important. Now that's still not actually where the story comes to a close, because we get two pretty massive stingers. We check on over with Dr. Graft and Mr. Farm, and we see that they have also managed to capture Lobo. No doubt hoping to upgrade him and set him loose on Superman like they have so many other villains since this book began. Only here's the rub though, while researching his blood they discover something very strange. Turns out Lobo's blood has some sort of strange signature inside it, almost as if some outside force has been tracking him everywhere he goes. The implication from their research too would seek to imply that there are more than one Czarnian left out there in the universe, which Lobo thinks is impossible. He's the last Czarnian, well, if you don't count the fake New 52 Lobo and his daughter. How could there possibly be more Czarnians? Well, from there we smash cut over to Brainiac making his big grand return in the Superman books. Since the end of the Snyder Justice League era, we see that amongst Brainiac's collection of jarred cities, he actually has last bit of planet Czarnia, and he claims that it is an integral part of his next great plan, a plan that will make it so he is not so nearly as alone in the universe himself. And so that was Superman Annual 2023 issue number 1, everybody, and I would give this one an A+ when it comes to creativity. We don't get near enough stories anymore focusing on the news team, and I love that in this era of Superman, his supporting cast is important and integral and actually makes stuff happen on their own. In fact, it's kind of a personal bugbear I've had for a while in modern superhero comics, where it seems like the non-powered supporting casts are kind of a thing of the past these days. But on for Joshua Williamson, he seems to understand the importance of Superman having a support network, and we get a really cool issue like this that gives them their own personal day in the sun, while also setting up several big things that are no doubt coming down the pipeline for this series. Overall, I would give it a very positive 8 out of 10. Felt like a breath of fresh air, really fun reading, and also I'm just glad to read something DC related that's not Night Terrors for a change. Overall, I'd give this one another very positive 8 out of 10. Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers, a lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest. That's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow and, help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.